Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. Please be seated. I hope you've all had a moment to read our acknowledgement to our First Nations friends and neighbors. And I'm going to call the meeting to order. But before we go to any of the items on the agenda, I just wanted to make a few comments. First, you'll see that the members of council are all sporting pink in some fashion or another. And I thought, for those of you who might not know, Pink Shirt Day started in 2007 when two high school students in Canada organized a protest by wearing pink shirts to support a peer being bullied for wearing a pink shirt. It's celebrated annually in Canada and in New Zealand. And today, I think Pink Shirt Day is actually Wednesday, but this is the closest council meeting. People are encouraged to wear pink as a symbol of solidarity against bullying in schools, workplaces, and online communities. So that's the 26th. And together we can help ensure a sense of belonging, whether at home, in school, or at work. And it all starts with a kind gesture, a kind word, and offering some support or understanding. So that's what we're doing this evening and showing solidarity in that cause. I would just like to say, if anyone is here, there was a bit of news on pay parking. There will be an opportunity this evening to address council on that, and there will be a new proposed motion put forward. I'd also like to send our note of congratulation to Wendy Lissegard-Cucina, who is the new Lieutenant Governor in British Columbia. She's a longtime West Vancouver resident, and we're very proud of her generosity in our community and in her new position. I'd also like to add that on March 3rd at 4 p.m. we are going to hold a special council meeting to deal with the 2025 tax discussion, and that'll be a special meeting. Now tonight we also have an announcement that I am extremely thrilled to make on behalf of a unanimous council. I guess it started in May of last year when Councillor Watt and I were admiring our new park in Horseshoe Bay. And Councillor Watt looked over and she said, "Wouldn't that beautiful boathouse building be a wonderful arts facility?" And that brilliant idea led to an extensive amount of discussion and negotiations, and I'm proud to announce that Council has now solidified a purchase agreement with the Sewells family to acquire that beautiful and iconic building as a future facility for the arts in our community. And I have to pay because I recognize Danny Sewell, I think is back there, or the Sewell. I recognize the Sewell family, and I think it's very appropriate to recognize this family who since 1931, 94 years in business in West Vancouver, 4 generations have contributed so much to our community. And it starts with Thomas Sewell, then Dan Sewell, Mary Lou, Dan Sewell Jr., Grandma Eva, and Mary Lou, and now the 4th generation, Megan and Eric Sewell, are taking and running the business. And all of these generations have been pioneers in our community, from the changing times, introduction of the rod and fishing, reel fishing, to the installation of air-cooled putt-putts and major boats, boat retailer design, and then of course designing this very iconic building. This building was first created, envisioned in 1981, and as I think all of us know, it opened up as a restaurant known as The Lodge, and over time it was owned by the Keg and then the Boathouse. And I think many of us will remember it as a wonderful place for friends and family to get together and have meals and celebrations. And the building has its roots in First Nations heritage and design. The sweeping views over the ocean and up the Howe Sound are stunning. And I believe I speak for all members of council to say this will be an absolutely wonderful community facility as we go forward. And I would just like, I don't know if Mr. Sewell or anyone of the family want to add a word or two, but I would like to express our most sincere thanks, because I know parting with this building is a bit of a two-edged sword. Mr. Sewell, thanks for joining us tonight, and thank you for working with us. It's been really wonderful to work through this together for our community's benefit.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. You know, it is an iconic building, and you've said it very well. And when the idea was broached, it was like, oh, really? And then the more that council, the group of you worked with Megan and worked this through, I think it's the right move for this building. Now, part of the building was some welcoming panels that the artist Norman Tate carved for us. They're quite large. They were on each side of the door, and they really have a heritage, and they really belong with the building. So we talked about it, and the Sewell family would like to make them the first donation to the art facility.
You have a Danny, I think, is that you?
I hate to admit, but yes, that's me a few years
ago.
You
haven't changed a bit.
That's Norman Tate. He actually had a studio and did quite a bit of work in West Vancouver down on Dunderave, and we collaborated on the panels. My involvement was suggesting how we could match cedar boards together in such a large size. Building floats is kind of working with cedar, and Norman and I worked it all out. And if you when you do get a chance to see the carvings, you'll just notice his detail. There's not a sketch or a line or a slip or anything. It's just magical art. So thank
Danny,
you very much.
Thank you very much, and our community is very lucky to have you and your family, 4 generations, contributing as much as you had. I'd also like to recognize, I see we've got some of our members of our different arts panels and advisory groups, and I'd like to express our sincere thanks to everybody who's been involved in promoting art and culture in our community. Thanks for being here tonight and sharing this rather exciting evening. Councillor Watt.
And I also want to thank Mayor Sager, because I did, when I just threw that idea out there and it just came on the fly, I really didn't know how it was going to bounce. But, you know, the look in Mark's eye, he just saw it and got it and ran with it. And, you know, to all of the staff and the Sewell family, everybody who's been involved with this, and of course, none of it could have happened without the support of this council. And I personally am incredibly grateful for everybody, for all of their involvement.
I should just add.
And of course, to the arts groups and facilities. Thank you.
And working with our arts community, one of the things that we're hoping might come alongside this is a Saturday art market on the pier, like something like they do on Salt Spring Island, where local artists can come and share their talent. I think this is going to throw great vitality into our community and most certainly Horseshoe Bay. So again, thanks to the Sewells, thanks to all of the staff and members of council for making this a reality. And now could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Snyder.
Yes, I'd like to recommend that the February 24th, 2025 regular council meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Thank you. Question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. Thank you. And now we have a presentation, our annual presentation from the West Vancouver Stream Keepers Society, of which both Councillor Gambioli and I are members and enjoy. Oh, and Councillor Lambert, of course. And I would encourage all members of council. And Councillor Thompson. Oh, okay. We've only got 3 that need to join. There you go. Then it'll be a unanimous group. So, who's joining us this evening? And of course, we recognize John Baker, who has been so involved. John Barker. Okay. John, thank you so much for everything you've done to get this great society up and going and all of your effort over all the years.
Thank you, Mayor Sager.
Great. Okay.
Okay,
This is good enough.
ready?
Yep.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Sager and Council. My name is Leslie Pomeroy, and I'm taking over from John Barker as leader of the West Vancouver Student Streamkeeper Program. We are here tonight to present the results of the spawner salmon surveys conducted last fall by streamkeepers and secondary school students. With me are two students from West Vancouver Secondary School who served as student leaders and statisticians. Over here we have Oliver Huang, and right next to me we have Benjamin Brosnan. Last fall, 60 students participated in the salmon surveys. They were divided into 14 teams, conducting weekly surveys of Brothers and Haddon Creeks over a 7-week period. Each of these teams was led by a streamkeeper sponsor, and everyone on the team wears these bright yellow vests. Thank you, Councillor Gambioli, for once again serving as leader of one of those teams. The objective of the program is to look for and enumerate returning adult salmon that will spawn in our local creeks. Oliver and Benjamin gathered the survey data and created the statistical summaries that were published each week. We just completed our 17th year of this program with West Vancouver and Sentinel secondary students participating last fall. Tonight, the student leaders will present a summary of the surveys and finish with Oliver and Benjamin providing a student's perspective of this educational experience. And we are aware of the time restrictions, so I will hand it over to the students.
Thanks very much.
All right. Again, thank you all for having us tonight. It is truly an honor to be here. Tonight
Oliver,
we'll-
thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mayor
Is this
Sager.
mic on?
Thank you, Mayor Sager. Tonight we'll just be giving a quick rundown of our data that we have collected this year, followed by some of our student experiences and some broader implications. Yeah, well, hand it off to Ben. Oh, sorry, that's me. My name is Oliver. I am a grade 12 student at Westland Secondary. This is my 3rd year in the program now, and I am one of the 3 lead statisticians this year.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Brosnan. This is my 2nd year in this program. I'm also a grade 11 student at West Vancouver Secondary School, and I will be returning next year as a lead statistician. Right. Okay, let's get into it. So here we have our salmon identification chart. So this year we surveyed 3 species of salmon: our chum salmon, our coho salmon, and our Chinook salmon. And right here below we have a map of where we are surveying this year. So as Leslie mentioned, there were 14 teams serving 12 zones, where we were generally east of Taylor Way and south of the highway, with the exception of Oliver's zone and my zone. And we'll get into why those 2 zones are so important later on in the presentation. So the reason why we like this map is that it's more than just a representation of where we were. This map allows us to distinguish West Vancouver into 3 distinct geographical parts. So we have the bottom, where our streams meet into our oceans, and then we have the populations under the highway, and then we have our populations above the highway, where our streams lead into our mountains and our forests. And so, from an environmental perspective, it's easy to see how our sea-to-sky highway acts as an ecological barrier that prevents the cohesion between these 3 parts. So how do salmon play a role in contributing and combating a human-made barrier like this? Well, by swimming upstream and spawning and dying, they're essential in our biodiversity, in our nutrient cycles, and our food web. They are the connection. And so this is one of the reasons why we do streamkeepers. It serves as a proxy for determining the health of our salmon, our streams, and our local environments in West Vancouver. With that said, let's get into 2024's data. Okay, so first things first, we want to mention the atmospheric river in week 1 of October, which I'm sure you all are very well aware of. There was both immediate impacts of the atmospheric river and, interestingly enough, some long-term benefits for our salmon. So the impacts, immediately, we saw that there was great displacement of rocks, debris, gravel. Our salmon beds, salmon spawning grounds for our salmon were completely disrupted. The intense water levels made it difficult for our salmon to travel further inland. However, which you'll see later in the data, by week 3 to week 4, those long-term impacts really started becoming beneficial for our salmon. So the elevated water levels made it easier for our salmon to swim further inland past the highway, which is why Oliver and I saw such great numbers in those 2 zones. There was a bit of habitat renewal. Our salmon beds were refreshed, and salmon had safer places to spawn and die. And with that, that leads us into our hard numbers this year. So this year we saw over 1,500 chum salmon, nearly 500 coho salmon, and over 130 Chinook salmon. This is one of our best years. And we're really proud of that number, as it just shows what progress we're making towards preserving our environments. So over here below, I have our charts to kind of give you a visualization of what we are doing. So throughout the 7 weeks, Oliver and I were collecting data. Here you can see there's week 3, as I mentioned, where you're seeing those long-term benefits of that atmospheric river, where we saw a record number of 660 salmon. This is one of the best numbers we've ever had in a single week of Streamkeeper surveying, and we're really proud of that number. And this year, we also broke that 2,000 mark, which has only been done a couple of times in Streamkeeper history over the course of 17 years. So yeah, it was a really great year for us. Here is a graph over the course of the 7 weeks to give you a visualization of our different species of chum, coho, and Chinook. So earlier in the year, you can see by week 3 and week 4, our chum species peaked. And interestingly enough, by week 7, nearing the end of our surveys, our coho salmon were still continuing to increase. It just really shows what progress we're making towards preserving those salmon, and we're really proud of that. With that, let's get into our experiences this year. What it means for West Vancouver, what it means for us statisticians, and what it means for the future of our community. So for me, it was a really rewarding experience. I'm really grateful for the opportunity. As someone who's relatively new to West Vancouver, having just moved here 2 years ago, I found that this was a great way to connect with my local community, my local environment, and really develop that sort of hands-on learning, something that you can't really get in the classroom. So again, I'm really grateful for the opportunity. Now I'm going to pass it off to Oliver.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Now, Streamkeepers as a program is one of a kind here in West Vancouver. There's none another like it. And we at West Vancouver Secondary are very fortunate and very appreciative to have this program in School District 45. Students in the program learn to take responsibility, showing up to the surveys and being punctual to their surveys. But more importantly, they are able to be a part of the community through this experience. And our yellow vests that we wear them with pride, and the communities when they see us serving, we are seen with respect. And I think these vests that we wear today are not just a uniform, but it really shows to the community that we're here to make a difference, and we're here to do great stuff. And the program itself is very unique because the data we collect is very real, and they're being used to inform real decisions and policy making. And personally, I've learned through this program many things. I believe, in particular, being the statistician this year, I've learned to manage data by learning how to manage the Excel sheets, and I've learned to take leadership of the program, which had many challenges and triumphs. And it was a unique experience for me to learn how to manage a large group of students as a student myself. And for the observation highlights, we have many photos of students encountering animal sightings and learning about the salmon anatomy from our sponsors, learning how to use a Zack knife to cut open salmon that have spawned and died. And it is always a highlight for the students. And of course, the students get a chance to not only connect to their fellow members on their team, but also their sponsors. Below are just some of the team photos that we've collected.
Can I just ask, in the picture where the salmon is dead and cut open, but it appears to still have all of the roe in it, is there a reason that would be? I would have thought.
Yeah, so the way we do a lot of our surveying is we identify whether they're male or female, and we cut them open to see whether they've spawned or not. So of course, there's always going to be a couple of salmon that can't successfully spawn. Like as you can see here, this female coho, it seems to be, wasn't able to lay her eggs. However, after the 7 weeks, we found that majority of the salmon that we opened, their eggs were empty, and that's why we saw those such high numbers, as I mentioned earlier, where we've never seen something like this before.
Interesting. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And as we bring this presentation to a close, we do encourage everyone to think about what is now possible and what more can we do to further contribute to our stream conservations. For the Mayor and Council, it is whether it is making future policies with our environment in mind or simply respecting our streams. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation, both of you. Excellent presentation. Yes, we can do that. Well done, and I'll turn it over to Councillor Gambioli.
Thank you. I have a couple questions, and Councillor Lambert maybe too. Last year, in 2023, we had a big problem at the beginning of the season with chemicals, which in the end were determined to have probably come from the runoff related to a chemical that is sprayed onto car tires. And so I just wondered if you could talk for a minute about what's going on with that, if you know, and was there any effect this year, because that did kill a lot of the salmon at the beginning of the season in 2023.
Right, yeah, great question. So thankfully this year, we're pleased to say that none of that runoff affected our results this year. And this was largely because before the season started, we had high amounts of rainfall, and throughout the season, we had high amounts of rainfall compared to the year before where we had that bit of a drought period. And so that tire runoff really affected our salmon that year. But yeah, as I said, this year, because of those high water levels, we saw no amounts of tire runoff that affected our salmon.
Okay, that's good. I understand that the federal government is looking into restricting, hopefully, the use of that chemical. So I think our MPs might be a little bit involved in some of that work, but yeah, something we need to stay on top of. Did
Councillor Lambert.
Councillor Lambert have a question?
Thank you, Councillor Gambioli, and thank you for your presentation. You may have already sort of touched on this question, but could you or one of you describe again the impact on the salmon caused by the atmospheric rivers last October on those two creeks, Haddon and Brothers, where you conducted the salmon surveys?
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the presentation, so there was those immediate impacts which were, posed challenges for our salmon in the beginning, where you can see in the data, we saw some lower numbers in week 1. We had to cancel tons of surveys. We were only able to conduct 4 surveys that first week because of those massive amounts of water. However, later in the week, or later in this surveying season, by week 3 and week 4, as you saw in that graph, our numbers peaked. We saw over 660 salmon, and that's largely because those elevated water levels just really gave way and allowed our salmon to travel further inland. Which is why past the highway, where Oliver and I were, we saw record numbers of fish in those zones, which we haven't seen before.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you. The question that I had has just been answered, that actually these high water levels were very advantageous for the fish to get upriver to spawn, thereby accounting for the very high numbers. So thank you. And also a very excellent presentation, please. And I'm just curious, because I'm always curious, where did you come from to move to West Van?
I came from the States.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I moved from Texas to West Vancouver.
Okay, thank you.
Years ago. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Watt.
I'm up next. Yeah, thank you. That was a really wonderful presentation. You both have obviously put a lot into it and a lot of thought. Very much appreciated. I did some salmon counting in Alaska many, many years ago. And I'm just curious, what are the methods that are you netting or how? We had spears and nets, which was a little uncomfortable.
Oliver, you want to take this question?
So personally, when we are surveying, we typically stand on the edge of the streams or the shorelines, and then we peer in at least as best as we can using a bird's eye view to physically count how many fishes there are. And if we do spot any dead salmon, we will pick them up and then we'll use our Zac knives to side them open.
And do we, is the dorsal fin cut on some of them so that we can identify the returning salmon?
Yes, some of the endorsing fins will be cut if they're a hatchery salmon. And sometimes they go into our streams and we can identify them as a... Pardon?
It's the adipose.
Sorry. The adipose fin that the hatchery cuts so that we can identify whether they come from a hatchery or if they're natural spawning.
Thank you. Excellent presentation.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed your presentations. From year to year, the story, it's always there's a new story each year. And one funny question I have is, who does your PowerPoints? Because they're great.
Yeah, well, Oliver and I made them.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, every year they're so different, and I find them really well put together, comprehensive, and that's great. But a more serious question. We have a lot of groups around town who fundraise and like to give away their profits to good organizations, and of course your name always comes up. Have you guys got any specific projects that you're fundraising for, and can you identify any sort of specific or ongoing needs that you could always use a bit of contribution towards?
I think that would be a question better directed to Mr. Barker.
John, do you want to address this?
Thanks, John.
I'm sitting back there partially because I'm failing hearing, and sadly. But so could I, Councillor, please repeat the question?
Well, I was just wondering what sort of initiatives you're working on that you could use some extra funding or support from.
Yeah, there's a number of projects ongoing. We have a work plan every year. We've been doing this for a long time. We've made the point, I think, clearly back to Mayor and Council, is all the projects we've done in West Vancouver have not required a single penny from the municipality. What the municipality's role is to approve the work we're doing, which is by professional people preparing the work plan and areas that we attack and go after to improve salmon passage and to improve habitat. There's a lot of organizations out there that are willing to help salmon. It's pretty high on the list throughout the community, corporations, but the big one is the Pacific Salmon Foundation, and we go there for funding. And that money, they won't contribute more than 50% on a project. They expect you to move forward as a stewardship group, all volunteer, I might add, and to engage with the community and seek other sources for funding. But the biggest project we've done in the last year was the Cypress Creek, which is phase one of 2 phases. The next one will be more challenging and more expensive. But we've just received the funding for that, which is over $300,000, which is just, to me, staggering. We've never had a project that big before. But that's the 7th major project we've done in West Vancouver. And as I said, the district's role has been oversight, make sure it's all being done according to our own rules within the community, and that the rules are followed as far as bylaws are concerned. And we've always had tremendous support from Mayor and Council on these projects, as with district staff who have really come to the party to help us. None of our projects would get as far as they do if it wasn't for municipal staff. I hope I've answered the question. I'm sorry to be so long-winded, but...
No,
very good.
Very good, and you make it easy to support you. And I think what I need to do is review your work plan. We get your updates, which are great. I'd love it if you could forward the PowerPoint to Council. I think it's a great little report to look over and review from year to year. And if you can include a work plan too, that would be great.
Wonderful.
Thank you
Thanks.
very
Appreciate
much.
the question.
Thanks very much. Councillor Gambioli.
Great. Okay. Well, to wrap up, in terms of the conversation about your projects, what about, I know we've been doing these surveys since 2007, and what would you say about the ability of stream keepers and the district then to work together to sustain our local salmon populations? Are we at a point where you would say it's sustainable? We still have a lot more work to do. How are we doing?
Well, throughout the 17 years, this year in particular, it is the year with the most amount of coho salmon we've ever seen in the last 17 years, the second most Chinook year, and the fifth biggest chum year. So actually, we are actually seeing more and more salmon coming in throughout the years. And this year was very successful with a staggering over 2,000 salmon, I believe, which is very, very great. I'm not super sure on particularly what kind of conservation methods we are actually using, but as far as the data shows, I think they're going pretty great.
We're doing pretty well.
Doing pretty well so far.
We're lucky to have so many streams. Vancouver has only one fish-bearing stream left in all of Vancouver. So we have, I'm going to just guess, a dozen at least that stream keepers are helping us to maintain. So we're really, really lucky. Okay, my last question, it just occurred to me that after the atmospheric river, in doing the surveys I noticed in the stream, a lot of the banks have been eroded, or they're constantly changing a bit, but really there were some big effects. So are we in touch with our parks department around those kinds of issues? Like I can see, the streams are, banks are eroding. There may be issues with private property. We work, I know we do work to some extent to shore up certain parts in parks, etc. But we are working, and obviously stream keepers would be the group that would be able to identify a lot of those areas that are eroding. So we're keeping in touch on that, hey?
There's very good communication between the stream keepers and actually numerous divisions within the district.
Yeah.
So, we're really thankful for the work they do.
I would say in Brothers and I didn't survey Haddon personally, but we didn't see any extremely distressing levels of erosion. It was more just a redistribution of gravel. There was a lot of that, and also water just finds the easiest way, so they find new channels. But eventually, they tend to go back to the existing channels. But yeah, you do. There are changes every year with the creeks.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised to see how much erosion there was in certain parts, but okay. Great.
Could I have a motion
Thanks,
to
everybody.
receive the report?
Yeah,
Councillor
I
Gambino.
will recommend that the delegation from West Vancouver Stream Keepers Society regarding stream keepers salmon surveys with students be received for information with thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert. Thank you. Call a question. All in favor? Contrary carried. Again, thank you very much. First-class presentation. And now we'll move to item number 4, Nelson Canyon Bridge. And I guess we have a presentation from Mr. O'Sullivan. I thought are we having technical issues over there? Pascal, can you give him a hand? Thank you. And could I just ask, well, anyway, no, let's have your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to present on about two important bridges in the District of West Vancouver. I think the recent earthquake on Friday highlights the need to develop plans for the future of these two bridges. So the two bridges I'll be talking about today are the Nelson Canyon Bridge and the 26th Street Pedestrian Bridge. The first is the bigger one, the Nelson Canyon Bridge. The Nelson Canyon Bridge was constructed in 1956, originally as part of Highway 401. And then when the Trans-Canada Highway was upgraded and the alignment was shifted south, a new bridge was constructed over the canyon. And the old bridge was gifted to the District of West Vancouver in 1974.
What a gift.
It's a gift that keeps on giving, I guess. The bridge now forms part of the Trans-Canada Trail, and it is closed to vehicular traffic. It's critical to the water infrastructure system in the district, in that it carries a water main transmission line to the western part of the district. Work on the bridge started in 2017, 2018, and then the work was paused during COVID. So we've just recently, in 2022, we came back to start reviewing and working on options for the rehabilitation of the bridge. It started off with a detailed inspection of the bridge. So in these detailed inspections, the inspectors get into all parts of the bridge. They basically, detailed inspection is hands-on to every part of the bridge to see what condition every aspect of the bridge. Based on the detailed evaluation of the bridge, the estimated end of life for the bridge is about 2031, which means that if nothing other than basic and routine maintenance is done by 2031, the bridge, to continue to have a high level of confidence in the safety of the bridge, major rehabilitation work will be required. The report concluded that gave a bridge a rating of 4 out of 5, which indicates the bridge requires moderate priority structural repairs. And then as you approach 2031, the severity and the need for the repairs will continue to increase. The big issue, and which is why I mentioned the earthquake that we had on Friday, was that the bridge has no current or seismic resistance that meets current code. And it would be, if we had a major earthquake, the bridge would be expected to fare poorly and potentially suffer significant damage.
Can I just ask, as we're looking at that middle picture, was that the original water pipe that is now on the deck?
Yes, that's correct.
Used to go underneath it.
That's correct, yes. So for the Nelson Canyon Bridge, we've after following the detailed assessment of the bridge structure, a consultant helped us look at or examine 3 options for the bridge. The first is to remove the dead load on the bridge by removing the concrete surface and replacing it with a timber surface. So the first option was to remove the concrete surface to reduce the dead weight and replace it with 8 meter wide, so essentially the wide as the bridge is today, travel surface or wood surface, and then to add seismic upgrades to the structural members of the bridge, and then to realign the water main on top of the bridge as it is today. The estimated cost for this work was about $1.5 million. The second option, to try to reduce the cost, instead of doing a wooden deck for the full width of the bridge, we considered doing a wooden deck that's only half the width of the bridge. And then as well, we'd also do the seismic upgrades to the structural members of the bridge. And the water main would be all placed on top of the bridge as it is today. The drawback with this option is, as you can see in the photo on the right, is that the bridge beams, the steel bridge beams, would be exposed. So there is potential that people crawling out or walking on the bridge beams. We would probably want to put some sort of system in place to prevent people from accessing and walking and getting onto those beams. Unique, specialized bridge protection systems can be very expensive if we were to do something. So this option, which is the 4-meter wide bridge timber deck, would be about $1.2 million. The third option we looked at was to abandon the existing bridge, demolish it, and construct a brand new bridge. This, with the new bridge, which would be south of the existing bridge, would have the water main relocated underneath it, and the cost would be about $4 to $5 million. And that does not include the demolition of the existing bridge, which could be, previous reports estimated to be over $1 million for demolition of the existing bridge. So the second bridge we're going to look at is the 26th Street pedestrian bridge. The 26th Street pedestrian bridge was constructed in 1937 by the district, so it's 88 years old. And it's located at the base of 26th Street and allows pedestrians to cross over the CN rail. There's approximately 55 pedestrians a day using the bridge, so about 26, 27 pedestrians walking in each direction during the day. From the picture on the right, you can see that the bridge starts on the north side of the railway tracks and it's level with the road. But after it crosses the railway tracks and gets to the south side of the tracks, it's about a 4-meter elevation difference between the top of the bridge and the road. Again, so similar to the Nelson Canyon Bridge, we did a detailed inspection of the timber pedestrian bridge on 26th Street. So again, the inspector got on and laid hands on all the members of the bridge to get a true understanding of what condition the bridge members are in.
Mr. O'Sullivan, was this bridge gifted to the municipality as well? Maybe from BC Rail or CN or somebody like that?
In this case, it was a bridge that was built by the district.
It was?
Yes. So again, it would be 88 years ago, so it's an old bridge. The inspection discovered that the bridge is in very poor condition. It found that there was advanced decay in the timber members, particularly in the vertical columns, and there was also weather deterioration on the horizontal and the bridge deck, and concluded that there's no remaining service life in this bridge, and because of the extensive decay in the columns and on the bridge deck, the inspector recommended closing the bridge as soon as possible. They concluded that the bridge was not structurally sound. So for the 26th Street Bridge, we looked at 3 options. The first option was rehabilitation. So could we take the existing bridge and rehabilitate it so it could be usable again? But because of the extensive decay and the nature of the decay, it was felt that it could not be replaced, or could not be rehabilitated. It would have to be demolished. Part of the other reason for demolition is that the bridge doesn't meet current Transport Canada clearances from the railway track. So it would be difficult, if not, it may not be possible even to get permission to rehabilitate the bridge in its current location. So the second option we looked at is demolishing the existing bridge and redirecting pedestrians to cross at either at 27th Street or at 25th Street. The 25th Street has a concrete sidewalk that crosses the railway, where 27th Street does not have any marked pedestrian crossing of the railway tracks. the third option we had our consultant look at was to produce a high-level estimate of what it would cost to rebuild or construct a new bridge. So with limited investigation, the consultant concluded it would cost between $500,000 and $2 million to construct the new bridge. He didn't go into details onto what type of bridge, what materials, or whether it would be suitable for bicycles or for wheelchairs, which the current bridge is not suitable for either one. So this cost estimate of $500,000 to $2 million should be considered a very high-level ballpark estimate. So what we're, after reviewing the reports from the consultants, the recommendations that we're making for the Nelson Canyon Bridge is that that the council directs staff to pursue the renewal of the Nelson Canyon Bridge, which includes a full deck replacement, so the 8-meter wide wooden deck replacement, as described, which was option 1, and that number 2, staff report back to council with an update on available funding mechanism, a proposed project timeline, and a detailed Class A estimate, so we have a true understanding of the cost to place the 8-meter wide wooden deck on the Nelson Canyon, plus do the seismic retrofit for the bridge. For the 26th Street pedestrian bridge, where staff are recommending that we demolish the existing bridge and redirect pedestrians to use the 27th Street crossing or the 25th Street crossing. And that if directed by council, staff report back with an update on available funding mechanisms, a project timeline, and a Class A estimate for the demolition of the bridge. So we have, again, a detailed understanding what the costs will be for the demolition of the bridge. So this last slide is just a quick summary of the options that we looked at for the Nelson Canyon Bridge and for the 26th Street Bridge. So I thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Councillor, looks like there's been quite a few questions. We'll start with Councillor Snyder. Oh, sorry, were you first? Councillor Thompson. Oh, I didn't see the flash.
Thank you, Mayor Sager. Yeah, a few questions on both bridges. The first one, with Nelson Bridge, why are you considering wood as a rebuild versus something more weather resistant?
I guess it's cost-wise and weight. So you want something that's reduce the weight on the bridge, because that was sort of the limiting factor on the strength and structural of the structural components of the bridge, was the weight of the concrete deck.
And this was recommended through a consulting engineering firm, one, or did you get a couple different recommendations?
This recommendation came from one consultant.
Okay. Okay, with the 26th Street Bridge, and I'm sorry if I missed it, because you said it may not be permitted to be rebuilt in this area or rehabilitated in this area. I don't understand why.
The existing column is about 4 meters from the. Sorry. It's. Whoops. Sorry. So the existing vertical columns are about 1.8 meters away from the tracks. Under current Transport Canada regulations, they need to be at least 4.6 meters away from the tracks.
They're currently 1.8, and they should be 4.8 meters away from the tracks. Wow.
So it's I guess it's a safety precaution in case a train derails. So that's, I believe it'd be very difficult to get permission from Transport Canada and from CN to rebuild the bridge as it is today.
Okay, so the columns from the bridge go down to the tracks?
Yes.
Okay. And then you mentioned accessibility for wheelchairs and bikes. Is today's standard to always provide that in an accessible point?
That's the desirable, yes.
It's desirable, okay.
Yeah, it's so to make a wheelchair ramp on the south side of the crossing. If we use the crossing where it is today with a 4 meter elevation difference, the ramp would have to be over 48 meters long.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating how, wow. Okay, those are the only two questions I have. I do have some comments after, though.
Thank you, Councillor Watt.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, very much appreciated. So yeah, I did a walk on the Nelson Bridge, or Cypress Bridge. I'm losing my Nelson. I don't know where I got Cypress from. But anyway, I did a walk out there yesterday, and you know, I've certainly walked that many times in the past, and I certainly appreciate the value of that to the community and it being part of the TransCanada network. So obviously, and with the water, it needs to be done. It's unfortunate that there would be the concern, I suppose, with the half width. So it sort of seems like we'd be leaning toward the middle option, the 1.5. And on to that point, the two less expensive options, they provide 25 years, correct? And the $4 to $5 million option is 75 years. So really, it's the same thing, the same cost. And I suppose 25 years from now, we don't know what the needs will be, you know, here within this community, and there will likely also be a larger tax base. So, you know, I'm personally inclined to that. But going back to the wood and maintenance, I think, as Councillor Thompson pointed out, what about composite? Are they any less expensive, or certainly with maintenance?
I don't know, to be honest. I'm not sure. I'd have to follow up with our consultant to see to get a better understanding of what materials they considered and why they chose wood as their final recommendation.
Okay. And with respects to the 26th bridge, 100,000 estimate. Now that is a rough estimate. It seems high for a bunch of rotting wood to come down.
It does. Part of the cost is dealing with CN Rail. We're looking at almost $30,000 in just fees related to CN Rail's approval process. So that it's very difficult working with CN to get their approval and to get past the review process.
Okay. Wow. And at UBCM, a number of us took a look at some, I guess they were prefabbed kind of bridges. Mm-hmm. And has staff ever investigated those sorts of bridges as options?
The consultant who looked at the 26th Street Bridge did consider, that's how we got quite a price range from $500,000 to over $1 million, was he looked at a very bare bones aluminum prefabbed bridge all the way up to sort of a custom, more of a custom bridge with custom materials and a custom design, style. So that's why the wide range of costs to build a new bridge.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's disappointing that this is obviously beyond its end of life. I hope there's a solution that is palatable.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Councillor Gambioli.
So just to talk about the Nelson Canyon Bridge for a second, the half-deck replacement, you spoke about the fact that we would need some sort of fencing or something. Has that been included in this cost?
It didn't. It is strictly looking at the bridge itself. We'd have to develop or design a workable system to keep people off the exposed beams.
Okay, and do we have any idea of how many people actually use that bridge to go back and forth? I have actually anecdotally never seen anyone use it. So just wondering, how much we need to spend. I realize it's for the water, but...
Unfortunately, I have to apologize. I didn't get a count done on the bridge. We were sort of focused, because of the water main, we were focused on the bridge has to be rehabilitated or replaced, and I didn't do the account on the bridge to find out how well or how many pedestrians use the bridge.
Might be a few deer from time to time. Okay. Those are my questions related to the Nelson. We want to do both of them at the same time?
No, I think
should we put
separate
this one to bed first?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's go to Councillor Cassidy.
excuse me, thank you very much. So on doing the whole bridge, which is option 1, and that's 1.5, and then doing option 2 is 1.2. So savings of $300,000. And you said one of the issues, of course, on option 2 is how do you prevent people from voluntarily climbing off for adventure or using the bridge for ending their life. So if you look at the Second Narrows Bridge, they have put up all that fencing, both sides of the bridge, to prevent people from using it for purposes other than which it was designed. So why could we not do similarly? I mean, it's pretty simple to attach these steel or whatever the metal is, barriers completely along that side of the bridge.
Definitely, because when we looked at some of the systems, they ranged from $500,000 to $16 million for systems on larger bridges in North America. So we didn't, unfortunately, do a detailed study or ask a consultant to do a detailed study at this stage, but we definitely, before we proceed, if the decision was to go with the 4-meter wooden deck or composite deck, we would have to do a detailed design to figure out what would work, and so we would rely on our consultant to help us to come up with a method to control access to the exposed beams.
Well, I don't actually quite understand why we'd have to do a detailed design. One could only go down and look at, for example, the Broad Street Bridge, or you could look at the Second Narrows Bridge. You could pick design A or design B. I don't see why we would have to turn around and spend all that money doing another design consult. It just seems to me to be a waste of money. But on my second point now is going on to the 26th Street Bridge, which, other than the fact of its emotional, shall we say, tug because of from 1937, but also if you look at all the street ends along the way, all the various individuals who live on the other side of Bellevue, Marine, and up, at the ends of their various streets, they all have access points to get down to Bellevue. So, for example, if you look at Park Lane, they have some stairs, and then there's sort of a concrete laying, and then whatever that component is, and then over the railway tracks, and then off. And if you look at the seawall, for example, at let's say at the base of 21st, they go upstairs, you go over the railway tracks, you come downstairs, and you go along the pathway. So if it's going to be financially prohibitive to rebuild the bridge, why don't we do somewhat similar, where we build some stairs down again, and then have a platform or whatever the terminology is, and then repeat the process on the other side. So those people still have the right of access down to Bellevue, because that right of access is being offered to all the other streets along the way, whether you're 23rd, whether you're 24th, blah, 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 all the way out to 31st, you have the right of access across that railway track. And I don't think the individuals who currently are wishing for the bridge to be retained are needlessly emotionally attached to the bridge per se. I can't speak for them, but I would surmise that's the case. I think they're more logically and logistically attached to the fact that they want to be able to cross the railway tracks at the bottom of their street. And to me, it's a very simple solution. Your thoughts?
On the north side of Bellevue, it's a retaining wall down to the railway tracks, so there's not the room to put a set of stairs in. So the cost to put the stairs in, and with the narrow width of the north part of Bellevue, I don't even know if it's physically possible to construct stairs from the north part down the 4 meters to the railway crossing and cross. The other issue comes back to CN, whether they give us permission to do that. But I think the key is I don't know if it's feasible given the 4 meter elevation difference and the narrow distance between the existing North Bellevue and the railway tracks. something we could definitely talk to a consultant about if that's council's direction.
Is it not something that we could examine and see if it is feasible?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Snyder.
Yes, just a couple of things. Just in response to Councillor Cassidy, I can assure you that the cost of those safety rails and posts that was put up on the Second Narrows Bridge and the Burrard Street Bridge was extremely expensive. I'm not an engineer, but I do recall hearing how much it cost the district to put those posts up there. So I would think that would far outweigh the $300,000 in savings. I guess my concern or question is also in regards to that Nelson Street Bridge, because I am on the same path that I do think that the half path across Nelson is better than the full one because of the $300,000 savings. The fencing that you're talking about really doesn't prevent the one comment that Councillor Cassidy mentioned is, should somebody choose it for the wrong reasons, if you do the full fence, you still have a fence that somebody could climb over quite easily. So you're still in the exact same boat right now. So the only thing you're talking about is somebody sort of trying to walk along. Now, I don't know how far apart those beams are, whether or not it's possible to actually step across them. But would it not be just possible, if the purpose of it is to prevent people from stepping on those beams, that you would put just some fencing along at each end to prevent people from accessing it? I mean, I guess at the same time they can just climb over the railing and access them.
Yeah, I guess no matter what you do, if someone is determined, there's no way to stop them. So this fencing would be more to deter the extreme, not call them extreme photo or the adventurers. The beams are too far apart to walk across like a set of stairs, but it's a way of just minimizing the risk that someone, I want to say, playing around or trying to do extreme demonstration would discourage it as best we can do.
Right. Actually, Mr. Finley does mention to me the Capilano Dam has preventative fencing, which is quite simple, and I would think also not that expensive compared to some of the other fencing. So that might be an option as well. Councillor Gambioli mentioned it would be really nice if we had a count, if we had some sort of an idea how many people we're talking actually use the bridge. So that's something else that, moving forward I'd like to see. I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds like we are going to have to do something because the water system is obviously extremely valuable and most important to us. So, the fact is it's going to stay. It's just a matter of what we do with it. So I think it'd be nice to know what sort of counts we're looking at on that bridge. Again, but my initial thought would have been, the half path seems to be just as sufficient as the full path, but I understand some of the rationale behind it. The 26th Street Bridge, we did receive a fair bit of correspondence on this since the agenda came out to the public. I think there's a misunderstanding, or maybe the full agenda wasn't fully read and the report wasn't quite read by everybody. It's not an option to keep the existing bridge that we have.
That's correct.
So I think that the first thing we have to do is accept that bridge is going to come down. I just don't think there's any way around it. I think that what I'm hearing around the rest of the table here, and it's also my sentiment, is I'd like us to be exploring options on how we can still create a right-of-way or an access across there, and whether or not that be at ground level, was Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Gambioli have mentioned in the past. I mean, I think it would be worth exploring whether or not that's an option. And then, of course, the replacement bridge, I think, is, again, something that's quite a broad range of 500,000 all the way up to 2 million. So I would certainly like us to explore our options moving forward on that. But
Councillor Snyder, while you have the floor, can I ask you to make a motion to just to receive the report, and then we'll continue with the other items. We're still going to debate the.
I just had a couple questions.
more, but that's okay.
No, but just, if you could just.
I just to keep things moving along and then turn things over to Councillor Thompson with her further questions. So I'd just like to recommend that the council report titled Nelson Canyon Bridge and 26th Street Pedestrian Bridge dated February 10th, 2025 from the Senior Manager of Roads and Transportation and the Transportation Technologist be received for information.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Question, all in favor? Contrary, carried, thanks. Now we can go on to the decision council wants to make on the Nelson
Yeah,
Bridge.
so I mean, I think maybe it's best to have Councillor Thompson ask her question before I make any type of
Yeah, I do
motion.
have a couple more questions and then comments. So first of all, with the Nelson Creek Bridge, as someone who does frequent it, it's a very much appreciated bridge, whether the volume's high or not. I come up from the White Lake parking lot off of West Port Road and go into the trails on the west side. I see the road carries on, but how far does the road actually go before it, and where does it go?
I don't have the slides. You almost made a horseshoe from the new TransCanada alignment. It made a sort of a horseshoe. It was a sharp curve in the TransCanada alignment, so they flattened it out. So the road essentially goes from the TransCanada Highway and then joins back into the TransCanada Highway.
Okay, thank you. And then, with the 26th Street Bridge, it seems like to see the impact that CN's involvement has on the cost is phenomenal. And over the years on council, I've had quite a few inquiries about repairs to rail crossings. Sometimes it's just wooden plank steps going up and over the thing, and it's never clear about who's responsible for what. Now, clearly this bridge is ours, and I think what's missing in my mind is what is the maintenance schedule for these, and I wonder if we do have any type of maintenance schedule for these crossings at each street, and then wonder if we've ever had those discussions with CN Rail about doing a comprehensive review of our crossings and what that looks like.
So through the mayor to Councillor Thompson. So there are many at-grade crossings, whether it be pedestrian or vehicular crossings in the district, and we also have underground utility crossings as well. So those are handled a little bit differently. Those are handled through what's referred to as rents. For the at-grade crossings, we don't, over the course of the years in the ownership of the rail, some of the records have been lost, but we do have for the most part, an inventory of whether they be certificates or orders or agreements that set out maintenance and sort of cost obligations and where those fall in terms of whether it's the road authority or the rail authority. And we do have ongoing conversations with CN. We receive bills on an annual basis and, that sort of thing. So there, it's quite extensive, the sort of maybe background in terms of the relationship between the two authorities and their obligations.
Okay. Are there public speakers, or can we give comments?
Does anybody, there is somebody.
We do have one member of the public that signed up, yes.
Does the one member of public wish to speak on the Nelson Bridge or on the 26th Street Bridge? Okay, I think we'll divide that off for a moment, and we'll ask you to join us in a moment. Councillor Snyder, I think at this point in time, if you'd be prepared to make a motion, I must admit I'm feeling much more comfortable with option one. I think the risk of doing a half bridge is great. I actually use that bridge quite a lot to do the White Lake Loop, and it is a well-utilized facility.
So the full bridge.
Yeah. And the motion that's recommended this evening that staff are bringing forward is at this point in time simply to get a Class A estimate.
Yeah, and for that reason, I would like to leave the option open as to half or full. I mean, I prefer not to commit to the full because, like I said, now in Mr. Finley's comment, I recall I've traveled that Cleveland Dam many times, and basically, it just prevents people from being able to get into the water, climbing down, and it's a very simple fence that goes along with chain link or barbed wiring along the top of it. nobody's climbing it, and I would think, a relatively easy fix. So I'd like to keep the option open and have it explored both ways. I mean, I'd rather
Would you
have
like to
all of
make
the
a
information.
Will you make a motion to
Yeah,
that effect?
I'm prepared to make a motion to, that staff be directed to proceed with the Nelson Canyon Bridge project by moving forward with the following steps, and that is to pursue the renewal of the Nelson Canyon Bridge, which includes both a half deck and full deck replacement, along with any fencing that may be, or preventative fencing that may be required, and seismic upgrades described as option 1 within the council report titled Nelson Canyon Bridge and 26th Street Pedestrian Bridge dated February 10th, 2025 from the Senior Manager of Roads and Transportation and the Transportation Technologists. And the staff report back to council with an update on available funding mechanisms, a proposed project timeline, and detailed Class A cost estimates.
Thank you. Councillor Watt?
Yes, sorry. I had my mic lit up for a moment there.
Okay, sorry. Are you happy to second that motion?
Yes, I am going to second that motion, and my mic's been lit up for so long, I'm almost forgetting what it was.
Sorry.
But that's okay. Just to your point about how many people actually use the bridge, I was out there yesterday in the moments before the rain, and I encountered at least a dozen people out in that area, and that's, on a February winter day. And I had one other question. As this is part of the Trans-Canada Trail, hiking trail network, is there the potential for federal funding for something like this?
Ms. Waller?
Through the mayor to Councillor Watt. So that would be part of our work in terms of exploring external funding opportunities that could be pursued as part of the project.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
And I will
Councillor
second
Gambioli?
that.
Thank you. Councillor Gambioli?
Yeah, so I guess, the excuse me, the bottom line is this is sort of an example of when someone gives you something that you don't really want. It really just seems like so much overkill to create a 24-foot wide bridge that is used very rarely, and to make it look really, really good in the middle of nowhere. I don't know, it really seems like incredible overkill. I realize we're in a tough spot here, but yeah, so I mean, I'm just hoping that staff can keep in mind that what we want to do is, the number one priority is the water. The number 2 priority is access for a very limited number of humans walking. And otherwise, we need to keep the costs as low as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Snyder?
Yes, my only other comment before calling for the vote is that this is just another perfect example of why the district and why we need to keep up our asset levy in the district. People think that the assets. Well, this is one of those assets that we really didn't need to have given to us, or it was given to us, and we have to manage. So when we're looking at the budget and having to allocate a certain amount of funds towards asset levy and what have you, this is just another perfect example of where a quick $1.5 million or $2 million can quickly go like that. So just a quick note.
Fair point. I'll call a question. All in favor? Contrary, the motion's carried. And now with regards to Nelson Street, we do have a member of the public who wishes to address us. Thank you, Mr. O'Sullivan. Sorry, 26. What did I say, 29? No, Nelson, 26th Street Bridge. A little break.
Hi. Mayor and councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Karen Bodie. I live on the 2600 block of Lawson Avenue, and I'm here to express my support for replacing the pedestrian bridge at 26th and Bellevue, counter to the recommendation to permanently remove it. So in the West Vancouver Official Community Plan, active transportation is identified as a key area that needs to be strengthened in our community, and this includes creating new connections for pedestrians and encouraging their use. The cited reason for this bridge's removal is no impact to the pedestrian network and a low use of 45 to 70 people per day. So this number demonstrates to me that the bridge is in fact, or it has been in active use until its closure last summer. As for the pedestrian network, 26th Street is a good north-south pedestrian corridor with relatively low car traffic and a relatively consistent grade. Uphill, the pedestrian bridge crosses the highway to access the forested trails near Collingwood School, and downhill it extends to the waterfront via a footpath to access Marine Drive and then the Bellevue Bridge in question. So crossing to Lower Bellevue via the bridge allows walkers to comfortably and safely access the foot of 26 Park, Dunderave Beach Park, and the seawall. And the proposed detours include adding an extra half kilometer via 27th Street or navigating significant car traffic at 25th Street to access these important local spaces on foot. So removal of this bridge access, I believe, goes against the need for more safe and attractive pedestrian routes and infrastructure. So the original bridge is a simple, functional walking bridge, and the option of replacing it with the prefabricated bridge adapted to this location, to me, seems ideal, or the staircase option if that's an option at all. But the prefabricated bridges are simple, elegant, and I think can perfectly echo the spirit of the original. So I hope Council considers that the option to permanently decommission the bridge is one item in a year's budget, whereas the option to replace it is an investment in the quality of life for many years to come. And West Vancouver's leadership in 1937 saw the investment worthwhile, lasted 87 years. So in summary, I recommend that Council, as you seem to be discussing, will consider a detailed cost estimate for a prefabricated replacement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to clap too. Councillor Gambioli.
So just a question about the recommended motion. It says, Part 1, pursue the demolition of the existing structure, and then it says formalizing the alternative crossing points. What does that mean exactly? Formalizing?
Well, I think if that moves,
I would be amending it.
yeah, if that moves that way, that would mean we wouldn't be seeking a replacement. And I, for one, hope that we continue to find a
Maybe I
way.
can make my
Councillor
But-
Snyder,
but-
why don't you put a motion on the floor?
But regardless, it's coming down, and there's not going to be a replacement right away. So I'm just curious, what that means.
Ms. Muller?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gambioli. So I think the mayor is quite right in his interpretation. We would be demolishing the existing bridge crossing, and by formalizing the existing at-grade crossings, it would just mean that in order to pass from Lower Bellevue to Upper Bellevue or vice versa in that area, you'd be crossing at either 25th Street or 27th Street.
So does that mean we would
So
be
as
adding-
is, status quo in terms of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it really means
We're
not
just
doing
demolishing it,
anything.
yeah.
We're not doing anything. We're not adding signage. We're not improving those crossings at those other two sites.
Well, we could certainly pursue some wayfinding and, the existing crossing at 25th already is a ped crossing. The 27th Street, there is no sidewalk, but we can look into that.
I just wondered if that involved a lot of money and staff time.
No,
I guess.
no, to answer your
Okay, so,
question.
okay. Thank you.
I think Councillor Snyder's going to try out a motion on us, though.
I will try to, thank you. I'd like to recommend that staff be directed to proceed with the 26th Street pedestrian bridge project by moving forward with the following next steps. Pursue the demolition of the existing structure and pursue the replacement of the 26th Street pedestrian bridge, and that staff report back to council with an update on available funding mechanisms, a proposed project timeline, and a detailed Class A cost estimate.
Is there a seconder? Seconded? Okay. Okay. Councillor Cassidy seconded the motion. Councillor Gambioli.
So, sorry, that is suggesting that we rebuild?
Yes.
That's what you just suggested? Okay. All right, what about the idea of pursuing or at least researching the option of including an at-grade crossing, if that's possible?
That could be an option,
Yeah,
certainly.
sorry, because you're right, I did say the replacement, but I would say and staff pursue or explore options available for an alternate crossing at 26th Street. How's that?
Okay, so a more general
Yeah.
statement. Okay.
Okay, that's an amendment to the motion, and that's a friendly amendment
Yeah, I
agreed
guess
to by
my-
the seconder.
I guess my comment would be that regardless of the cost, I personally think, for the purposes of the public, I think where we're going to run into the problem is with CN. It's not going to be so much, it's an issue, the cost, of course, is an issue, but CN, my experience, all of our issues here working with CN have been super difficult in my terms here, and so I suspect it's actually going to be CN that's going to stop us from being able to create this crossing again. So I'm sorry to disappoint, but I just want to keep everyone's expectations really low.
Thank you. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Mayor Sager. One friendly amendment I'd like to suggest is deleting the reference to a detailed Class A cost estimate, because that's a lot of work based on a very particular solution. And right now, we're really taking a look at options, so that might be something that could come along at a later date. But
Perhaps through the mayor to Councillor Snyder, further explore the feasibility and order of magnitude costs associated with available options to reinstate a crossing at 26th Street.
As Mr. Muller says.
That's a friendly, again, another friendly amendment agreed to by the, okay. I think we have a consensus around the table. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary, the motion's carried. Thanks very much. Let's keep our fingers crossed. We'll move to item number 5, wildfire hazard management. Thank you, Ms. Keith. Chief, thanks for joining us this evening.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council and members of the public. Chief Howard and I are here tonight to discuss a proposed amendment to the Wildfire Hazard Development Permit Area designation. This is in follow-up to the fire department's monitoring of what happened down in LA recently and our fires in the province over the last couple of years. And it's in our continued effort to be proactive in our preparedness to wildfires within the District of West Vancouver. So I'll just go through what the existing wildfire hazard DBA looks like, some of the lessons that we've learned, and why this has brought us here tonight to our proposed bylaw amendments and our recommendations. So as you're aware, we have had recent wildfires in West Vancouver, the most recent just up from Horseshoe Bay in 2023. Also within our province, we've had greater frequency of wildfires, a greater magnitude of wildfires, primarily due to prolonged periods of drier seasons, increased wind conditions, and drought conditions. For background, the Community Wildfire Protection Plan was approved by Mayor and Council in 2019. Our Wildfire Hazard Development Permit Area was adopted in 2020 as a recommendation from the Wildfire Protection Plan. The Wildfire Hazard DPA addresses new developments within the district. This is also in our continued efforts to respond to Council's strategic plan to continue to take steps to protect against the threats of wildfire. So the existing wildfire hazard development permit area is just one component in a suite of measures that the district is implementing to protect against wildfires under our protection plan. We have field management, we have the work that the fire department is doing, and we have our Fire Smart work on existing properties. Right now, the development permit area designation includes all properties within 100 meters of the forest interface. So that's approximately 5,000 properties within the District of West Vancouver. The requirements under the development permit area are specific to new developments, so new houses, applying fire smart principles to building materials, so requiring houses to be built with fire-resistant materials, as well as managing landscaping and ensuring there's spacing between structures and adjacent trees and vegetation. So the recent fires in BC and in LA has provided us a better understanding of how fires spread both from the forested interface and through a community. We have now found they have found particularly from the fires near Kelowna in the last couple of years that embers from fires can spread over 2 kilometers from the fire front and still ignite material. So if a fire had started in the forest interface, embers from that fire can travel 2 kilometers and still light a house on fire. And then once that occurs, fire can spread quickly due to wind and dry conditions from house to house through a neighborhood, and that was observed in LA. Now, given that the distance that we know embers can travel, we're finding that an entire community can be vulnerable to embers and not just the houses that are adjacent to a forest interface. So based on these findings and what Chief Howard has been monitoring in the last couple of months, we are here tonight to propose an amendment to our current DPA. So the major proposed amendments that we're proposing tonight, bylaw amendment, is to expand the DPA designation to all lands within West Vancouver and not just ones within the 100 meters of the forest interface. So it would be a requirement that all properties, any new builds on properties within the entire district would be required to build with fire-resistant materials and manage their landscaping to minimize the spread of wildfires. In addition, we have a couple of housekeeping amendments. There is an exemption requirement in the current DPA, and we'd like to update that to exclude any areas where there's already specific DPA guidelines to address wildfire hazards. And that's primarily Cypress Village that has a DPA with the adoption of that area in 2024. They already require wildfire management, so this would just alleviate them from having to get a DP on top of a DP. And then in addition, in the Lower Caulfield Heritage Conservation Area, there is a requirement with those guidelines to build houses or use building materials that are consistent with that neighborhood, which is both primarily wood material. Staff have been working with the residents in that area since this wildfire hazard DPA has been adopted, and have transitioned the building material used to be fire resistant. This housekeeping amendment is just to align the two policies in their OCP. So with that, it's a very quick presentation. I'd like to propose first reading of the bylaw amendment and to move this to a public hearing on March 31st. And with that, we're happy.
Councillor Lambert?
Thank you, Mayor Sager. So, I mean, this is a very sensible amendment in view of the new science and better understanding that Ms. Keith, you've noted now we have of how fire spreads through our community. So I don't think there, maybe.
No, there.
Okay. Now it goes on.
It's on.
Yep.
It's on. Okay. Well, I just wanted to kind of reiterate what you said, that given the new science that we have and a better understanding of how fires spread in our community, this seems to be a very sensible amendment, and I'm happy to make the recommendation. So shall I go forward
Yes,
to do
please.
that? Are there any questions?
We can put the motion on the floor and then discuss it.
Okay, recommend that opportunities for consultation on the proposed official community plan amendment with persons, organizations, and authorities as outlined in the report dated February 5th, 2025, be endorsed as sufficient consultation for purposes of Section 475 of the Local Government Act.
Thank you. Councillor Watt. Any discussion on that, Councillor Gambioli?
Yeah, I've got two questions. So how, if at all, does this affect the urban forest management plan with such a broad spectrum application?
Ms. Keith?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gambioli. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by how it affects the urban forest management plan, and some of the actions that we've implemented through that is looking at tree species for replanting that are more resistant to wildfire, more lower flammability, more tolerant to drought conditions over time. So we are currently updating, we have already updated our tree list to provide species of trees that are suitable to wildfire areas and that sort of thing. So we are working to align some of our tree policies with the wildfire management that we're doing. We continue to work with the wildfire consultants that are hired to do assessments of people's properties for development permits. There's only a couple on the North Shore that we work with. They are understanding of the district's need to protect trees as much as possible. So we don't typically allow the removal of our protected trees for wildfire management. There's other ways to reduce the risk of wildfires in terms of raising the canopy or pruning trees. So we really are working to not only protect our trees, but also manage wildfire risk. So we continue to work with our wildfire consultant, our expert, as well as our urban forest management expert to align the two together.
Okay, I don't know. When I read this, I have to look at the details a bit more, but I sort of see a conflict between, you know, these permit area sort of ideas around landscaping and not having, you know, vegetation near your home and et cetera, and that coming into conflict with, you know, creating more of a canopy in the whole community. I mean, this is going really much further than just dealing with homes that are near the forest.
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a means to not have vegetation on your property. Most of and we're working off of Fire Smart principles, which are very clear in that you want to maintain the vegetation on your property. So creating a space around your structures so that you don't have overhanging canopy on your houses. That doesn't mean you need to remove every tree on your property. And our staff work very hard to make sure that happens. We do right now with the properties that are in the development permit area that are directly adjacent to the forest. We work quite closely to navigate, you know, tree work versus developing on those properties. As you move more into the urban areas, it's more about building materials and ensuring that they are resistant. If we're looking, you know, 10, 20 years down the line, we're building a community that's resilient so that there won't be that spread of fire across. And really, you know, I think our fire department, they do a lot of the Fire Smart assessments on people's existing homes, and the key message is really maintaining a lot of the vegetation on your property, not necessarily removing it, but be creating a defensible area. So I think, I mean, I do understand that there is a conflict between wildfire management and tree protection. That is clear. I think that we are striving to allow planting of trees of the suitable type and to manage, you know, carefully how much vegetation we remove. I also think that, and sorry to keep going, but the wildfire professionals who make the recommendations on what should be done on a property, certainly I would think their assessments in the more urban areas would be different from assessments of properties that are adjacent to a forest interface. Some of the vegetation management may be more relaxed in a more urban environment and focusing more on what the structure and what the building is made of versus what you would see maybe when you're directly beside a forest.
Okay, and my second question, I guess, is just since we have had this in place with a large number of homes in the past, over the past 5 years or so, have we worked out all the kind of the kinks? And I'm a bit concerned, as you say, about the issue of, is this going to require a bunch more staffing for issues of prevention and inspection and all that? We're talking about like 15,000 homes, aren't we? No,
So
10.
So
That's a
through,
lot.
yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Gambioli. So we have worked out quite a few kinks, given that we only work with a few wildfire professionals in the district. We work quite closely to kind of work out exactly what the district is expecting for these assessments and to issue development permits. For this particular development permit area, we've put much of the onus on the applicant and its team. So we don't have wildfire professionals on staff. So it is up to their qualified professional to do the sign off, to do the recommendations, to monitor and accept any changes, to do the final inspection. So it's actually less staff time for this one compared to, say, our watercourse DPA or our foreshore DPA, where staff are more heavily involved. So we will monitor the increase of work over time should there be it. It's also looking at the number of building permit applications that are coming in right now for new builds only is decreased over the last couple of years. There's more renovations occurring. So the volume of work, I mean, we're not talking about 15,000 homes in a year. We're talking about potentially 40 to 50 homes in a year. So, and because a lot, they're fairly routine development permits, it's at this time we think it's manageable, and we'll reassess and monitor.
Are other districts doing this, or are we on the cutting edge, if that's what we want to call this?
With respect to the North Shore, we are ahead of the other two municipalities. We've spoken to the wildfire, because we currently are updating our community wildfire protection plan this year and reviewing what we are. They have indicated that some municipalities have started to move this way. Potentially done a tiered approach in terms of like what's required on properties that are more urban areas versus the interface. So we are being more proactive than other municipalities. But we do have a large forested area, and we do recognize that we are in a very busy fire season. There's not a lot of resources to support should a fire occur, and we need to ensure that the fire department has the means necessary. This is a way to move forward with that.
Thank you. Councillor Watt.
Thank you. Yeah, just a couple of very quick questions. Just out of curiosity, we've had 5 wildfires since 2018. What was the average in the years prior to that? When was the last fire before then?
See if you can hear me. Through the mayor to Councillor Watt, I'd have to look at the stats. There have been a number of fires in the time that I've been here. Those are the most recent ones that come to mind and have been a bit more public facing because of the climate that's changed. So the fires back 20 years ago were usually fairly small. So
Okay.
I'd have to look at the stats to get that.
Okay, thank you. And one thing that I've brought up, I know in the past, I don't know if it's been in these chambers, but cedars, I know a lot of communities really discourage and don't allow the planting of cedars. I mean, you take the green off the outside, it's typically tinder dry. Are we discouraging the planting of new cedars in this community?
Through the mayor to Councillor Watt, for properties that get a development permit for wildfire hazard, yes, they're not allowed to do cedar hedges and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So we are slowly starting to look at different types of species of trees that are adaptable to our changing climate. But yeah, those are high flammable trees.
Yeah, as soon as I learned about that, I got rid of all of mine. And one other final question. It was mentioned that in LA that the learning was that the embers can ignite, was it 2 kilometers away? Is that new information that was not known in the fire community before now?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Watt. It really started with the Fort McMurray wildfires, where the fire weather that was created during the firestorms there created ember showers and fire behavior that hadn't been experienced in North America. So it then happened again in the West Kelowna wildfires, where that jumped the lake, which again was thought to be a barrier that the fire was not able to jump. And so again in LA and Maui, the wind driven fires, and these fires create their own wind often. So it creates the significant risk of ember shower far beyond what we would normally have expected.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate this report, and I highly agree, strongly agree with what you're doing, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Yeah, it really does seem like a sensible way to go, but what we've realized in these programs is that there's a lot of learning going on, and we have to continue to learn, but I do have concerns about, and just for a sense of awareness, the conflicts that are going to arise, because I believe this program is geared towards new builds. And we have a lot of old homes in the community. And when you go west of Dunderray from Altamont out west, you get those properties that have very mature trees with every home has branches overhanging it. And, I've been involved in a number of conversations with builders and residents battling with these conflicts, not only in policy, but in neighborliness as well. So you imagine a new build going into a neighborhood next to an old house with lots of trees, and they're clearing their lot and putting up good materials, and all of a sudden the older home wants to start protecting itself and is more limited than they would be as a new build. So I hope that we're going to keep open minds and really adapt and support and encourage our people to improve their properties and homes as we go along. I also see issues with the building community who come in and have another layer of policy to adapt to, whether it's stream guidelines, heritage guidelines, canopies. It's getting a bit exhaustive. So I hope at some point we can look at all our policies and talk about how those marry together. It looks like you want to comment on that, Heather?
I was just going to add, through the mayor to Councillor Thompson, we did look at potentially looking at to whether you could embed some of this fire-resistant material requirements right into the building bylaw. It's difficult because the federal and provincial building codes right now don't have that. So for us to do it, it's difficult. There is discussion that they may do it, but right now they're leaving it at the municipal level. Right now, we do need to leave it as sort of a development permit policy, but we'll continue to monitor that. It would be simpler in other means, but this is our only mechanism right now to really require it.
And I can appreciate that, and I just hope we keep working towards a better solution. But I'm working towards the point, for about a year and a half now, I think a year and a half ago, we as a council were brought a presentation on wildfire prevention technology. And I get that we have to look at a few options, but a year and a half later, we're still just looking and exploring, whereas really that's the key we need to get into our community, is detecting fires before they get going at all. And I'd like to know where we're at in the timeline where we see implementing such technology across the North Shore.
Through the mayor to Councillor Thompson, we've been working with Metro Vancouver at doing a study of the different wildfire technologies that are out there, and just looking to get funding to do that study to see what the best solution is. We've been working with BC Wildfire as well, and looking to see what technologies they're looking at, because the sort of gold standard be something that is implemented across BC. And so we can leverage that and have the best system for West Vancouver and the North Shore.
So is there any chance we can get that implemented this summer?
There's always a chance, but it would be a pretty small one for this summer.
Okay.
The BC Wildfire Service hasn't, they've been looking at modeling software that's come out of California, and they've been using that, and that's something they've been working on, and they're looking at the technology. So they are involved in some of the assessment of the early detection technologies.
Yeah,
but that will probably be next season.
And I get it's a big animal, but I think if anything we can do as a collective municipalities is put haste to this fire prevention technology. But thank you.
Thanks very much. We have the first motion as read by Councillor Lambert and seconded by Councillor Watt. I'll call the question. All in favour? Contrary carried. Councillor Lambert.
Recommend that the proposed official community plan bylaw number 4985-2018, amendment bylaw number 5375-2025 be read a first time.
Thank you. Councillor Watt. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary, carried. And again, Councillor Lambert, please.
And finally, that proposed officially community plan bylaw number 4985-2018, amendment bylaw number 5375-2025 be presented at a public hearing on March 31st, 2025 at 6 p.m. in the Municipal Hall Council Chamber and via electronic communication facilities, and that statutory notice be given of the scheduled public hearing.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Thank you. Any discussion? Question? All in favor? Contrary, carried. Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Ms. Keith. Street naming, I'll turn over to Councillor Snyder. If you could make a motion, please.
Yes. Just quickly before I make the motion or the recommendation, I did a little research into exactly the meaning of the names presented here. Aquila is Latin word for meaning eagle, and peregrine is a falcon breeding on the mountains and the coastal cliffs. So quite fitting here in West Vancouver with the mountains and the coastal region and all the eagles that we have. So that being said, I'd like to recommend that the private road names proposed by the property owner, Aquila Avenue and Aquila Close, for the private roads accessed from Daffodil Drive, and Peregrine Court for the private road accessed from Westport Road for access to the development at Lot C and D, Daffodil Drive, be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any discussion? Question? All in favor? Contrary, carried. Thank you. Item number 8, proposed zoning bylaw final reading. Councillor Gambioli.
I'll recommend that proposed zoning bylaw number 4662, 2010, amendment bylaw number 5279, 2025 be adopted.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cassidy. Thank you. Any discussion? Question? All in favor? Contrary, carried. Consent agenda items. Councillor Watt. And you could
as
read
written, I would think.
As
Yeah.
written, yes.
So we've got numerous items here, so I'm just going to recommend that the consent agenda items be approved as written.
Thank you, Councillor Gambioli. Second. Thank you. Question? All in favor? Contrary, carried. Thank you. Yeah, we're still a quorum. That takes us to pay parking, which we've had quite a bit of discussion. I think the easiest thing. Nope. That was part of the consent. You've already moved it. So I'm going to put before council a consideration for an amended motion for item number 11, and perhaps we could bring it up. Do we have it to bring up on screen as well?
And just so you're aware, Mayor Sager, we do have one member of the public that signed up to speak to this item. Typically, you couldn't speak to an other item, but it's at your discretion as a chair. We also have public questions and comments at the end.
Thank you. I'm fine with anyone who wishes to speak. The proposed motion would read that staff be directed to hire on a contract basis a parking program lead to work with the Ambleside Dunderab Business Association to explore and support enhanced parking opportunities in our Ambleside and Dunderab business areas, and to support the planning, implementation, and program develop of pay parking within and adjacent to ADBIA boundaries in West Vancouver to be funded by the revenue generated through pay parking, and that staff be directed to take necessary steps to proceed with the implementation of pay parking at Cypress Falls Park, Seaview Walk, consistent with the Phase 1 pay parking program. 3, when the new parking program lead is hired, staff be directed to proceed with the implementation and work with the ADBIA through the implementation of pay parking within the business areas, that's John Lawson and Dunderab, and to monitor the program and to report back to council on its progress. Staff prepare an update to the district's applicable bylaws in connection to on-street parking offenses and penalties for the purpose of pay parking program enforcement, and the staff report back to council with a parking policy to support pay parking program expansion on a parking policy framework parameters, and that staff be directed to engage with the Squamish Nation regarding advancement of pay parking in Ambleside Park and report back to council. And I think I do need to highlight here And we need to constantly remind people that if you are a West Vancouver resident, you are exempt. And we need to encourage people to go online. It's actually simpler than one might think, but perhaps we could get people to volunteer at the senior center and other places where people might not be quite as adept at these kinds of apps. But West Vancouver, as I understand it, is the only community that has free parking for its residents. So that's the proposal, and now who would like to address council this evening?
The one name we have signed up is Nigel Malkin.
Mr. Malkin.
Mayor and Council, it would have been very nice to have known that we could speak before the meeting. Others would have done presentations had they known. I've worked in my family business on Marine Drive in Ambleside for over 47 years and have been the owner of it for almost 35. I lived in various areas of West Vancouver for 47 out of the 48 years since arriving in Canada, and I've lived in the same home in Dunderave for 24 years. So when it comes to Ambleside and Dunderave, I'm more than fully aware of what is going on. Before I say anything in regards to the parking fiasco at all, this came up in November, and there's been zero consultation with our ADBIA representative or with the businesses themselves. Maureen from the ADBIA found out of what was being debated tonight last Tuesday, and the motion was posted on Friday. Until I arrived just now, there was no word about public input. Our mayor advised me today that there were 1,800 parking tickets issued in Ambleside and Dunderave. That's 5 per day, only 5. Meanwhile, there are cars parked often all day with little to no policing at all. Myself and my staff gave up calling bylaw years ago because no one ever showed up to ticket cars parked that were well over the 2-hour limit. In the past few months, bylaw has finally done some parking policing, probably because of this. Usually they drive by once mid-morning for a computer log of the cars that are parked, and then once more in the afternoon to issue tickets to them. So if you arrive and park at noon, you're pretty well good till the next afternoon's drive-by. Having parking for our business is essential. The lack of policing over the years has been frustrating at least. COVID, they pretty well gave up on policing of parking, and it has never returned properly. This issue of paid parking has been studied a number of times over the years by district staff, and each time the analysis was done, and it came back that parking in the business district being policed by bylaw, that it was a money-losing proposition. How has this magically changed? I know that there were at least 2 studies done. Especially with TransLink taking, I believe, 21% of the taking. GST takes another 5%. MPark gets a commission, so whatever actually is collected, maybe 50% goes to the district. And then we need to deal with the policing of the business district that is outside of this pay area. I'm not against paid parking, but unless there is a guarantee of 7-day per week, 9 to 5 p.m. enforcement, then this is a business destroyer. Many of us are still digging out from the pandemic, and we do not need another blow like this. To have minivans of beachgoers parked on Bellevue or Marine Drive all day in the summer will be a disaster. As it is on many nice days in the summer, beachgoers park right in front of my shop, unload their chairs and coolers into their wagon, and they head off to the beach, obviously knowing the probability of getting a ticket is 0.
That's time, sir.
I've got one last comment. My final concern is that the free parking in West Vancouver is lovely, and it's great. But it is rather elitist, and while on vacation or even at events away from home, my wife will only ever say that we live on the North Shore due to the elitist vision that West Vancouver already has. If this hits the press, it will make that somewhat worse. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Malkin. Do we have, Ms. O'Brien? There's other speakers.
So I don't have to say what I have written down because I only saw this a minute ago. Sorry, Maureen O'Brien, Ambleside Dunderave Business Improvement Association. Thank you. That's my first thing. I appreciate that council and staff have heard what the ADBIA had to say the last.
This is only at this point in time a proposed motion.
Oh, yes.
So I will ask
That's right.
someone to move it and second it,
Okay.
and then we'll know.
Okay, then I just want to say that if it does go, the other things that are a big concern for us is Harmony Arts. That takes up a lot of parking in our summer months, which is a big challenge for our businesses. And then, so can I speak to what I?
Yes, you're free to speak
Okay.
to any issue. I just
Okay. Oh,
want
that
to be
it's not
clear
done.
that this
Okay.
is not done yet.
Right.
This is a proposal.
The District of Squamish is looking at implementing pay parking in their commercial areas, and I had a long talk with their BIA today, as well as some staff, and they did a really deep survey with businesses, residents, and visitors, and I think that might be something that we could look at doing here, almost like an Imagine Ambleside, but for parking in our commercial area and in areas that are near our commercial area. And then we've got the LAP coming, and if that keeps going, there's been some talk about parking in that. So I think it's all great if you guys support this, and it's a big support to our businesses. It is the biggest challenge our businesses have is parking. And until, I so appreciate the staff, the extra effort that staff has done to try to get out to our business areas more with bylaw enforcement, but it's not enough. I was there on Saturday and a truck was parked for 5 hours on Bellevue. So it's just not enough. So to that end, I appreciate the fact that so far you've heard our message. Thanks. Oh, and I want to introduce the next speaker if I can.
Sorry?
Our next speaker is our newest business in West Vancouver.
Oh, well, no, that deserves more introduction than that. What is the new business?
So this is our new owner of the cheese shop, Graydon's.
Oh, we've heard so much about this person.
So this is.
brought cheese.
Yes, you should have brought cheese. We are extremely excited about your new business.
As am I. That was a nice introduction. When the parking issue was...
I'm sorry, could we get your name?
Yes, my name is Kim Graydon, and I will be opening Graydon's Cheese Cellar on Bellevue. That truck was probably there banging out a floor, so...
When are you going to open?
Pardon?
When will you be open?
As soon as possible.
Like tomorrow?
Yeah, I wish it was last year, but no, hopefully in the summertime, beginning of the summer.
This is on in the Walker Building where Darwin had a display suite?
So when I just wanted to, as a new business to the area, just share a little bit of my perspective in terms of what was a priority for me selecting a location. And first of all, it was a very strong community, which I have felt in the very short time I've been welcomed into the community, and the robust BIA as well. When I started looking for a space to open cheese, charcuterie, wine, a place for people to come and not only purchase cheese and local products to enjoy at home, also a place for people to come and sit and have a glass of wine or something like that, and a charcuterie board as well. So I had reached out to the BIA, and they have been extremely helpful to me to have me find a place that was suitable for all of my needs. But parking was definitely high on the list for the shop. And the way that I understand it, the issue for businesses is, it is 7 days a week, but mostly the beautiful parks that people enjoy typically happen on a weekend. And I just wanted to share that in my business anyway, 75% of the revenue that we make in a week, that comes in a week, happens between Thursday and Sunday. So, and I understand that those are the days that would mostly be affected by people using Bellevue to park all day long and go to the parks. So I'm really happy to hear that there's a proposed change and that we can kind of all work together to come up with a solution. I do agree that I don't think, most people are against paid parking, but just that we can work together to come to a solution that's good for everybody. So
thank you, Ms.
Thank
Graydon.
you for the welcome.
And welcome to
and
West Vancouver,
yeah,
and we will be there on opening day.
I'm very excited to
all of us
have everybody come on in. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can I speak here?
Oh, of course. How could we ever say no to you, David?
Well, it's possible.
No, it isn't.
Do I need to introduce myself?
There's no need to introduce yourself, but you have to anyway.
So I would like to kindly ask the mayor and council to consider installing a parking division to the bylaw enforcement, because the number one problem facing my business, and I'm sure I'm not alone, is parking. And there's so many frustrated customers that come in complaining about parking, and at the same time, I see people parking on Bellevue like for 8 hours, no tickets being handed out. And I want to ask for a job. Right in front of my store, there's a no parking zone, which is constantly filled with cars, and I'll start ticketing and give all the money to the District of West Vancouver.
Okay.
But anyway, I just wanted to say that enhanced bylaw would be for any pay parking, we have to patrol our business parking.
So just one comment, because one of the things I hope, if council agrees to this motion, that the person who will work with the ADBIA and you as a business owner, there are a lot of parking opportunities in Ambleside that are underutilized. And your building, the Walker building, is with all great respects, because I like the Walkers very much, but it's a perfect example of an underutilized garage where they have a gate and it's closed. I have a parking garage myself, but we don't have a gate. And on weekends, it's not utilized because there are signs that are up that say private parking. What we need to do is encourage businesses to allow the parking that is, when it's not being used, to be put into some kind of a system. It could be a pay parking system or whatever, so that the public know they can use that space. We actually have parking throughout Ambleside. We just need to better utilize it. And it will be a bit of a mind shift for people that own businesses. But in your building, for example, I think if people knew that there was available parking underneath your store, they would use it. And a perfect example, I think, is the Grosvenor building, where Earl's and those restaurants, there is parking underground, but people don't use it until they know it's there.
No, I'd agree with that, but I think the problem in our building is I asked to get another spot, and the landlord said that there are no more spots. They're all taken. So maybe there's some, like, no one uses it, but I do agree with you. There's probably a lot of unutilized parking, like the liquor store closes at 6 o'clock, but it's reserved 24 hours. So there's,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The liquor store does not need to have the signs that say reserve parking 24 hours a day. Little steps like that, and I'm hoping that this person, if council agrees, will work with Ms. O'Brien and your businesses to change the mindset. Does anyone, member of council, wish to make this motion? Councillor Cassidy.
I make this motion. I do have certain issues with point 3 on this matter, which is the new parking program lead is hired. What time frame is that going to be? Is that going to be a month, 2, 3? And then the staff be directed to proceed with implementation, all right, with the ADBIA. I have no issue with working with the ADBIA. I think they know that. But how long is it going to take this staff member to get up and going and be sufficiently proficient in knowing what is going on down in our business district? We could be months away.
Thank you, Mr. Finlay. Mr. Manager.
Through the mayor to Councillor Cassidy, the recruitment for the position will happen immediately. I haven't liaised with staff to develop the job description to confirm exactly how long it would take for that person to get up and running. I would imagine that staff will will do everything that's necessary to get it done as fast as possible. Is the best kind of response I can give you.
As fast as possible is sort of how long did it take man to get to the moon? I mean, as fast as possible. We already have had discussions on the subject of wanting to move into Ambleside Park for the summer. And so that is down the road as well. And my understanding of moving into the park before the summer, there's going to be the consultation or engagement with the Squamish, so that's X period of time. And of course, we were going to work with the ADBIA before we went into Ambleside. So this point 3, well, that rather startles me because I don't believe we've discussed that. So working before we go into John Lawson and Dunderave Park. So I'm afraid that I cannot second or even proceed with this motion because I'm not in favor of number 3.
Okay. I'll see if we can have somebody, if there's a member of council willing to make this motion so we could debate it. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Snyder. Councillor Watt.
So, you know, to Councillor Cassidy's point, I would also like to know what kind of a timeline we're looking at here. And I know this sort of all came about quite recently. But, you know, it has to be stressed that the parking revenues that come from this program directly impact the tax rate. So $1 million in revenue is about a percentage less in a tax increase. So in my opinion, time is of the essence. And if we are engaging with the ADBIA, I also believe that we should be engaging with the general population as well, whose tax bills are impacted by this program and how quickly we can implement it.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Councillor Gambioli.
Well, I think just to be clear, this is at the end of the agenda under other items because it's not being brought forward by staff, it's being brought forward by council. This is a motion, a series of motions that are brought forward by council. So it's up to us to decide on the timeline or to at least kindly direct staff to what we would like to see the timelines be.
Thank you, Councillor Gambioli. Quite correct. Councillor Snyder and then Councillor Cassidy.
Fair enough, fair comment. I do think it's a little unfair of us to put our municipal manager on to a commitment that obviously he can't commit. I mean, we don't know how many people are going to apply, what the role is. There's a number of things that have to go into, obviously, finding a person and creating a contract to be undertaken. So I'm not prepared to necessarily put our municipal manager to a strict timeline. I take him at his word that everything will be done as soon as possible. Everything else he's done to date has been done in a very timely fashion, as fast as can be. So I'll leave that comment there. I think that just more so of a comment for the whole project in general. I am a big supporter of paid parking in our parks, particularly. I think that the cost of maintaining the parks should be shared amongst those that use the parks, and there's a lot of the users that are not West Vancouver residents. West Vancouver residents do pay for the use of these parks already in their taxes, so the free charge to our West Vancouver residents, I think, I appreciate might seem as elitist, but I look at it a little bit differently, and it's just sharing the cost to those that use it, user-friendly or user pay sort of model. So I think that District of West Vancouver residents already pay for it in their taxes. So charging it to those that don't reside in West Vancouver, I think, has a great deal of merit to it. I do agree with the speakers that the enforcement is a key issue. And I know that our bylaws department has beefed that up quite recently, and I know that they've committed to trying to continue to beef that up. I know there has been some restrictions and issues with staffing, which again, we'll leave that with our municipal manager to deal with, but I agree that enforcement is a critical issue, no question about that. Again, a reminder to all West Vancouver residents that it is free. I mean, a great deal of the correspondence that we received over the last couple of weeks has been from residents who live in West Vancouver but clearly don't understand that there's no cost to them, because most of the correspondence is, it's not fair that we should be having to pay for this. And so I think we need to do a better job of educating and that comes along with our communications. So I think that our communications out to the community is going to be extremely key. I think we learned a little bit of a lesson from phase one. I think there's something to be learned from how that was implemented, and I think that moving forward, we can do a much better job on the communication aspect of things, and that includes also training West Vancouver residents, because not everybody is user-friendly with their apps and what have you. We have seniors that have a tough time working computers as it is, so I think we need to sort of look outside the box, and whether or not that be setting up tutorials at the senior center or at the West Vancouver Library to assist people to drop in and help them register their vehicles. I think those are sorts of things that we need to look at and really focus on to make sure that this is a successful program. So other than that, those are my key thoughts on this, is just the education, training, communication, and enforcement, I think, are going to be key to the success of this program.
Thank you. Councillor Cassidy.
Okay, well, I have absolutely no interest whatsoever in putting any timelines on staff, in any way holding them to the constraints that they have 30 days, 60 days, 90 days to hire the person that they wish to hire, because A, they don't know the number of applicants, B, they don't know the quality of applicants, and they may well wish to hold out until they get the quality individual coming forward. But what I do want to see, and was hoping tonight, is for the rollout of pay parking into John Lawson and Nunderay Parks. And having done that, that we begin at that point in time with the proceed with additional enforcement in our business district by bringing forward John Lawson and Nunderay Park. At this point in time, we are going to very quickly learn the echo effect of what is going to be happening in our business area and begin to address that at that point in time. There is going to be an echo effect. There's going to be a greater echo effect when we go into Ambleside. So I would say let's begin now with finding out what that echo effect is, addressing it in the immediate, learning from it, and proceed as we go forward. We're not, this is, one would say, baby steps, baby steps. I don't know what we're going to make from Cypress Falls Park or Seaview Walk Park. But the name of this entire issue is we are looking for other revenue sources for our residents, rather than just continually going to them and increasing the taxes. We are endeavoring to be resourceful and looking at what we have, and those individuals who are coming into our district, using our parks, complaining about the quality of the bathrooms, and we are paying for them. So I realize that we have this issue at the moment with the Ambleside and Nunderay Business Association, and I am definitely committed to that group and the revitalization of our business district and making this a buzzing community. But we cannot go at such a pace, because sooner or later we are going to want to bring Ambleside, and I would like to bring Ambleside by June of this year. So I say let us include John Lawson Park and Nunderay Park, and then get on the immediacy with enforcements in our business district. One goes exactly the same as the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Councillor Watt.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that one of the unintended consequences of implementing pay parking in our local seaside parks, there's the presumption that there will be a negative impact on businesses, but at the same token, you've got families coming from across the Lower Mainland, and so they decide they want to duck out on paying for parking. They're going to come up to Marine Drive, presumably, or Bellevue, park their car where they're at risk of getting a ticket, but should they not? There is also, you've got new users and potential customers that would not have typically parked in front of the stores, because right now they're parking in a free parking lot. So myself, if I'm coming along and I'm going to, Joe's shop, and I can't find parking in front of it, then I will drop down with my free district parking pass into the parking lot and walk the half block to the shop that I would have been going to. So, there is a presumption of doom and gloom that we're going to lose all the customers, but what we could do is actually increase the client base by other people that have circled and decided not to pay the parking fee.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm happy to pick up this motion, the revised motion, and run with it. It was new to me too, coming in for this meeting, but it's here now, and I honestly believe we want the same thing. We might have different ways of getting there, but we've got to keep trying, keep the communication, and keep moving forward. Which is why I believe Councillor Snyder is on board as well. We've got the discussion on the table. We've got to keep an open mind as this goes on. Technologies will change. We have the ability to adjust this each year as need be. So that's what I'm going to leave it at. A lot of other good things have been said. But I actually, would like to point out that I do support an extra staff member, because the most important part about this very complicated area is we get it right. And you want a dedicated person who's not doing this off the side of their desk. You want a dedicated person to its stakeholders, to council, to be able to report and keep this holistically in their mind and top of their mind. So I have no problem with this, and believe that the revenue generated from the parking will pay for this person in spades.
Thank you. Councillor Cassidy.
Again, my great fear is this new hiree is going to come on board, and that is going to take a while. It's going to take 2 months, 3 months, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, the echo effect of this individual waiting to be hiring is loss of revenue to this district. And even more so, if this person takes 2-3 months to get up and going, then it may well impact our ability to go into Ambleside Park, where we're probably leaving $400,000 in revenue annually in Ambleside Park.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Councillor Watt.
Yeah, I just have a question for Mr. Finlay. So should it take the presumed amount of time, be it a month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever, to find the correct person? Does that mean that our progress right now in dialogue with the ADBIA would end until that person's in place, or can we continue along this path in the hopes of moving this forward at a more accelerated pace?
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Watt, absolutely. We start again this week. You are essentially unpausing this, and staff will start liaising immediately again with the ADBIA to continue to look for ways to satisfy council and going forward in this program.
Okay, thanks.
I would also just like to add, I think that the discussions with the Squamish Nation could happen very quickly. So Councillor Cassidy's concerns about delay hopefully can be alleviated.
Sorry to interrupt. My delay is not relative to the Squamish Nation. My delaying factor is relative to the delay that it takes to find a hiree and the delay that it finds to hire. And I recollect having conversations with the ADBIA in the month of May, asking them to contact our individual on staff who was given this portfolio, and they endeavored to do so, I believe, at least twice in the month of June. So we have been endeavoring to have conversations. Why they haven't gone anywhere, I don't know. But this is a lot of money that we are leaving on the table.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Councillor Watt.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, but I can and will accept these recommendations. And, and I'll just remind everybody here that unfortunately it will be impacted in our tax bills this year. But next year is another year. So it's with disappointment that I accept this.
Thank you. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Councillor Cassidy recorded as contrary. The motion is carried. Are there any reports from any members of council? And hearing none, could I ask for a motion to adjourn? Are there any public questions this evening? No?
Heather?
Mr. Malcolm.
We've heard about the potential revenues of this. We've heard and I spoke to Christine yesterday about there being policing definitely coming online to go and make sure that the current parking bylaws are actually being enforced. And what would the actual cost be for us to have 3 full-time parking bylaw officers to enforce this, to enforce parking?
Mr. Manager, any rough
I mean, it's a
idea?
lot of money. And again, so we're collecting 50% after we pay taxes and in-park. What's left?
What was the
Or
cost
are we,
of a
or are we
bylaw
not going to
officer
have
these
policing?
days?
This is the big, this is the stumbling block of this, and the fact that there's been no discussion about it.
But
you
Mr.
have
Malkin, you're confusing us a little bit, sorry. This is actually a time for questions.
It's
but-
question after, you've already voted on it, I understand, but the question being is, how many extra bylaw officers are we going to end up getting to enforce parking, and what's it going to eat into of your revenues? And it's an open question. I don't expect an answer. It's just, it's a very, very big deal, and as I said, this has been rehashed from district staff a number of times over the years that I've been involved in the family business, and it always came up that it was a net zero. And I would certainly hope that we do end up with lots of revenue, and it does all work out really well, but if the businesses are affected and there isn't proper enforcement, it's not going to be cool. And we'll be probably back here trying to remove pay parking in a year or two. Thank you.
Any further speakers? May I have a motion to adjourn? Sorry?
Heather.
I do have a list with a few names, but I'm not sure if
Okay,
they're still
sorry, no,
interested in
I
speaking.
called and nobody stood up, so.
Yeah, Neil Jensen, Heather Mercy, and
Mr.
Maureen
Jensen.
O'Brien have all added their names to the list. Good evening. I wish I was here earlier, but I had to go pick up my daughter and take her home. So, such is life. I guess my question is, when I look at this, everything happened so quick. Friday, one business day to run up with this. Stakeholders weren't, confronted on this, discussed. I'm challenged with the timeline on it. I also wonder about the financials. I've heard $500,000. But right in the documents, you say you want to have a full-time person there. That's $120,000 after, benefits and everything else. So that, really digs into there. And then with all of the issues with it being pushed out into the commercial residential zones, you're going to have some enforcement there. And I think Nigel's conservative with three bylaw officers, because that's 365-day enforcement that you're going to need there. That's what the city of Vancouver has, Burnaby, anybody who's got, pay parking in these areas, the enforcement's absolutely critical to it. And if it gets pushed out into those business areas, I really do worry about the businesses down there. I mean, they are already running on razor thin margins. I mean, I know what their rents are down there, and it is high. So, any loss of business. And I think there's, something to be gained from some of the people who might park there, but they're not just going to come and park there for half an hour, which I would propose that if you did move forward, that you set a half an hour limit in the business area so that these people will then vacate, because the last thing you want is to be down at Ambleside for, 2, 3, 5, 10 hours, and those spots not being available for customers, for the businesses. So just my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen.
So I do believe, though.
Neil Jensen, he did introduce himself. He did, yeah.
So even though residents get free, they still have to abide by the timelines, so they can't park down.
That's true. Yeah, it is important that people, West Van residents, even though it's free parking, they still have to follow the rules of the parking. Ms. Mercy, thank you for joining us this evening. I think you're going to be the last speaker.
I think there's one more, but thank you. My name is Heather Mersey. I'm with the Ambleside and Dunderave Residents Association. And over the course of the LAP discussions, we worked quite a bit with the ADBIA. And one of the things that has come up is the importance of parking and to the survival of the businesses. And I must say, the ADBIA has done a lot of work in our communities of Ambleside and Dunderave to make sure that the businesses are kept going, and it's a great place to come. So it's good tonight that even though the process was, I think, a bit wonky, that we've got a fairly good outcome, and that they are going to be included the ADBIA as part of the parking discussions ongoing. And the other thing, I guess the public doesn't seem to be really appreciative of the amount of revenue and the impact it will have under the tax assessment. So that's something maybe that could be worked on.
Stay tuned to our next council
Stay
meeting.
tuned,
And I
okay.
believe it'll be 4 o'clock on Monday next week. It'll be a different time. It'll be 4 o'clock.
Oh, 3, yeah, okay.
For
Okay,
the
thank you.
budget discussions.
That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. O'Brien?
I won't take up time, so me again. Now, I do want to say thank you. I appreciate all the support tonight. I want to thank Heather from ADRA. I work very closely with ADRA. I think we have a healthy relationship, and as part of working with this moving forward, I will also ensure that I'm hearing from the residents of what their concerns are, because this is just going to have a ripple effect. I really am confident that there's a solution out there. Pay parking in our commercial area, it could be what we need to have that higher turnover. Maybe we still have 2-hour free parking, 30 minutes free parking, but eventually, I just think there's a solution there. So I appreciate the confidence that council has that we can find a success here. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Are there any further? That's it. Now, can I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Snyder. Seconded, Councillor Thompson. Yes? Sure. There we go. Oh, sorry. Would you like to adjourn the meeting, Councillor Cassidy?
Done.
Councillor Watt, would you second that? Call the question. All in favor? Contrary, carried. Oh, man, I've been sitting.